In British Columbia, on the northwest coast of Vancouver Island, lies the spectacular East Creek rainforest. It is part of the Brooks Peninsula Wilderness, which includes the unprotected East and Klaskish valleys. On Vancouver Island, of 90 primary valleys over 5,000 hectares, only 6 remain unlogged today. The seventh pristine valley, the Klaskish Valley, was logged by International Forest Products, or Interfor, beginning in 1999. In 2002, Gordon Campbell's BC Liberal government approved Lemaire Lake Logging's proposal to build a 30-kilometre-long logging road and to log dozens of cut blocks in the East Creek Valley, the 6th remaining pristine valley. In the spring of 2003, Lemaire began blasting a road through the upper East Creek Valley. In July 2003, the Western Canada Wilderness Committee undertook an expedition to the East and Klaskish valleys. Before the arrival of European colonists over a century ago, virtually all of Vancouver Island was carpeted in old-growth forests, shown here in green. Today, 75% of the original ancient forests on Vancouver Island have been cut down and replaced by clear-cuts and tree plantations, shown here in yellow. Gargantuan-sized trees, often over 1,000 years old, characterize the ancient forests of Vancouver Island. This ancient Sitka spruce in the Klaskish Valley has a trunk over 3 meters wide, as does this giant western red cedar.
Well, we're in the upper Klaskish River here, and this valley was one of Vancouver Island's very few remaining intact valleys until the 1990s, the late 1990s. And at that point, International Forest Products got the right to log in here on public land. And what they did was they put up this gate so the public finds it difficult to get in here, and then they did some of the most atrocious, some of the most disgusting logging I've ever seen. They took one of our last pristine valleys, and even with BC's much bragged about forest practices code, they walked in here and they did these horrible bloody clear cuts. It takes my breath away. We came around the corner and looked at these things. These are some of the worst clear cuts I've ever seen, and they were done only a few years ago. This is the kind of logging we think we're going to see in East Creek. After doing this, there is no way the logging industry should be allowed in East Creek. This is disgusting.
Clearcuts in BC are replanted under the law with seedlings. However, the resulting second-growth plantations are different from the original ancient forest in several ways. Old-growth forests are much more structurally complex. They have trees of various sizes and heights, lush understories, lots of large, dead woody debris that house many species, and abundant mosses, ferns, and lichens growing on the trunks and branches of trees. Second-growth forests, on the other hand, are relatively undiverse habitats. They are like an empty house without furniture or food. This means that species that need or prefer old-growth forests, such as the marbled murrelet seabirds, long-eared bats, pine martens, goshawks, and the Vaux's swifts, are never or rarely able to survive in these plantations.
The variable retention logging that's going on right now is used as an excuse to justify logging the old growth forests, because they're saying that, okay, we're not clear cutting, now we're doing variable retention, and now it's more similar to the disturbances that happened here. The variable retention cuts they're doing here, leaving 10, 15, 20% of the forest behind, is still a much bigger disturbance than what would naturally happen in the old growth rainforests due to wind throw. And that's simply a fact. And the main thing too is that the rate of cutting too much too fast, means that even if you do variable retention logging, next time around you're going to you're going to cut down what you retained the first time through. So we need to reduce the rate of cut. We need to have higher retention logging, essentially selection logging, and we need to protect special places where there's no logging at all, like places like the East Creek and the remnants of the Klaskish here.
The new road headed up the steep slope of the Klaskish Valley on its way to the divide. Ancient trees were felled, the understory was bulldozed to expose the soil, and rocks were dynamited, pulverized, and laid down to make the new road.
Lemaire Lake Logging is a small company based out of Port McNeill, but they are also contracted by bigger companies, including Weyerhaeuser. I believe that Lemaire is building roads, and they're going to do a few cut blocks up here, but primarily it's because they're going to have a contract. I'm speculating right now, but I believe they will have a contract with Weyerhaeuser to also log in the lower East Creek Valley. They're building a road that doesn't access any Lemaire cut blocks. Their logging plan calls for a road that abuts against Weyerhaeuser's tenure with no purpose in terms of Lemaire's own logging plans. This seems to be a clear signal to me that Lemaire has some type of arrangement with Weyerhaeuser to do the logging.
A giant cedar was among the casualties of this intrusion into the ancient rainforest.
250, 300, 350, 400, 450, and then we get to 500, 550, 600, 650, 700, 750 years. Now this tree began growing in this temperate rainforest in the late 13th century, at a time when Europeans had no idea that this place existed. And it has grown here for over 700 years. It's part of an ancient temperate rainforest, which is one of the rarest ecosystems on Earth, which is why many British Columbians, many Canadians work so hard to preserve this kind of forest with trees. This tree is over 700 years old. Within this forest are trees well over 1,000 years old.
As the team continued towards the end of the road, the massive cut through the forest became fresher, like a new wound. The road had penetrated several kilometers into the pristine valley, heading for the heart of East Creek in preparation for extensive logging.
Right now we're in a forest that's being cut down by Lemaire Lake logging in the East Creek watershed. I'm sitting on top of a 1,000-year-old yellow cedar cut down for a road right-of-way for the extension of Lemaire Lake Logging's road. They're building this road so they can access dozens of cut blocks of similar 1,000-year-old yellow cedars so they can make some money. Now, the problem here is this is habitat for marbled murrelets. East Creek watershed is known to be habitat for marbled murrelets, for Roosevelt elk, for all 5 species of wild salmon in British Columbia. And it's an area that should be protected. It's so rare, and this kind of devastation cannot be allowed to happen in one of our very last pristine valleys.
The beautiful and tranquil ancient rainforest at the end of the road still stands now, awaiting its fate, ultimately dependent on the actions of those who care or don't care. This is the 11th hour for the East Creek rainforest. Only a fight of magnificent proportions will save this incredible remnant valley, and you are needed in the campaign. What can you do to help save the East Creek rainforest? Write the Premier of BC about whether or not he should protect the valley. Also, write to Weyerhaeuser on whether or not they should permanently abandon their logging plans in the East Creek Valley and tell their contractor, Lemaire Lake Logging, to do the same. Volunteer or donate to the Western Canada Wilderness Committee's East Creek Rainforest Campaign.